And we're back like we never left. Oregon fans, what's going on? How we living? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with ScoopDuck on 3. It's Tuesday, May 14th, 2024, coming to you from Long Beach, California. Got another episode, another edition of the ScoopDuck Daily. But before we get to that, the Ducks Dish podcast is brought to you in part by Ranchito Grill in Springfield. Not sure what your plans are for dinner tonight, but head on over to Springfield. Head on over to Springfield. Go to Ranchito, 1537 Mohawk Boulevard. They try their homemade tortillas. They got great food, great environment, and they will take care of you. Say what's up to my guy Ruben and let him know that Max Torres sent you. Not rolling solo. I got my guy Justin Hopkins, owner and publisher of ScoopDuck, on with me today. Justin, how are we doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
So far, so good. I feel like I blinked, and next thing you know, the day's halfway over already. But that's how it goes sometimes.
I totally feel that. It's been a busy day on my end too. We got some great stuff over on the site. Prediction Tuesday. And a big interview with one of Oregon's top 2025 targets. And maybe that's where we start off, Justin. Let's talk about that interview I got with one of Oregon's top targets here this cycle, 2025 Duncanville quarterback Keon Russell, who is verbally committed to SMU. He got an offer from the Ducks in person last week when Rashad Samples and Will Stein stopped by Duncanville while they were out on the road recruiting. And this really seemed like it was an offer that Keon Russell was hoping for, as he kind of had his eyes on the Ducks from a ways away. But they're, of course, getting involved and have been involved as they look for maybe a second quarterback here in 25.
Yeah, this it's kind of a weird thing, right? So you get Akili Smith Jr. committed early. He's a legacy. I feel pretty good saying he's probably not going anywhere else. But then you get a lot of interest from Keon Russell, who's, as we said before, he's one of the guys that's seen his stock rise more than anybody. This is really difficult for Oregon. You're in a kind of a tough spot, looking to take two quarterbacks. You don't want to upset, maybe Akili Smith Jr. Looks like Keon Russell's, open to be a second quarterback because as we talked about, I know Texas is also pushing for him. They already have a quarterback committed in this class, so it doesn't look like that's anything that bothers him. And I'll let you speak more on it because you had a conversation with him. I just exchanged some text, but certainly seems like his commitment to SMU is very soft at the moment, I guess you could say. So it looks like the Ducks are probably going to end up getting him on campus at some point, and when that will be, I guess we'll see. But really makes things interesting. Obviously, the Rashad Samples connection, and then of course, he's got a really good wide receiver, Decorian Moore, that Oregon's recruiting as well. So it'll be interesting how that impacts things.
And Keon Russell hit me with the Dream School line, Justin, as far as his interest in Oregon and kind of reacting to that offer. So I'm sure you and we both hear that all the time. So you can't really put too much stock into it at this point. But to your point, that visit for Keon Russell, getting him out to Eugene on campus is going to be the next key move for the Ducks here after they went out to see him in person. I think that's a personal touch there, just going out to his school to extend that offer, one that we probably thought was coming. But it sounds like that's what's going to be coming for him, is a trip out to Eugene. They're going to try to get him on campus later next month is what it was sounding like when I interviewed him. That full write-up is over on ScoopDuck, by the way. So give it a read if you guys haven't already. You can try us out for a month for just $1. Justin and I are always trying our best to get those big time interviews and the scoop for you guys. But as far as Keon Russell, another interesting element here is, like we've talked about, that potential 2 quarterback haul, that 2 quarterback class. So he was just talking about how he's a competitor and he's going to do anything he can to get that number 1 spot as far as competing to be the starter at whatever school he lands at. And he just wants to see kind of how Oregon manages this with them already having Akili Smith Jr. in the fold. So I think he just still wants to see that attention and feel like a priority for this coaching staff now that he finally has this offer in the fold. And he talked about how him and Decorian Moore are the best duo ever. He said, you can't compare us to LeBron and D Wade. So if you just turn on the tape on Friday nights, you can see that these guys definitely have a special connection. And Russell is super, super fun to watch. We got some tape rolling here on the ScoopDuck YouTube channel. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. But the big takeaway here, obviously, the Samples relationship, like we alluded to, he said that it couldn't get any better, can't get any better than it already is. And he said that Oregon was kind of a top 5 selection for him now. But there's a lot of big schools that are still looming, like Alabama, Ole Miss, and then Texas was another one you mentioned as well, Justin. So this will be a recruitment that we're going to have to keep our eye on here moving forward, because if you can get a guy like Keon Russell in the fold, I think it's going to do really big things for you, not even just with Decorium Moore, but just attracting more top talent.
Well, and as you and I both know, and as we've heard, and I think even Dan Lanning said as much, Oregon wants to recruit in Texas. They really would like to get in there and mine some of that talent from Texas. And so if you go and get a quarterback like this that, everybody knows, all the circles down there know him, the 7-on-7 circuits, all these people know who Decorium Moore are and Keon Russell are. They don't really know Akili Smith Jr. He's a California guy. That makes sense. They don't really know him. They know Keon. So he can help your efforts not only in 2025, but beyond with, not just Duncanville guys in that area that, you might go in and recruit. He'll be able to help you peer recruit in that sense. And the last point I want to make is, as you kind of, as we sit here and think, man, Oregon's got a really good quarterback room, and they do, but some food for thought. Obviously, we know Dylan Gabriel's one and done after this year, right? The assumption is that Dante Moore takes over possibly after Dylan Gabriel leaves, and that's next year, right? That'll be Dante Moore's 3rd year in college. Okay, does he come back for a 4th, or does he do enough to be able to go to the NFL? My point to that is, you bring in Keon Russell and you bring on Akili Smith and you say, hey, look, you're more than likely going to probably learn for a year in our offense and get bigger, stronger, faster, all those things. But in your sophomore year or your redshirt freshman year, whatever you want to call it, we basically have an open position, and the only guys in front of you aren't that much older. Obviously Austin Novosad and Luke Moga, assuming neither of them transfer. So, if you look at it that way, it becomes somewhat of a kind of a sellable idea to take 2 quarterbacks in this class.
You can see how this all we're trying to shed some light on Oregon's plan here, or at least give some analysis, some of our thoughts here to how Keon Russell could ultimately factor into Oregon's efforts here in the 2025 class, which I think has another potential to be a really special group for the Ducks, obviously. So I think that's pretty much what we had to say about Keon Russell. He's kind of one of the biggest, I should say, offensive names that we're tracking here moving forward for the Ducks. So I think it's more than likely they're going to get him on campus. It's just a matter of when. I think June 21st was a date that he threw out there, which, as we know, is going to be a huge weekend for the Ducks. So we'll keep our eye on that one. But moving right along here on the ScoopDuck Daily, I put a pair of predictions in this morning, Justin, and I wanted to talk about some of them. My first prediction that I'm really excited about is 2025 Laverne, California, Bonita linebacker Noah McHale. Noah McHale is coming off of an unofficial visit once again to check out the Ducks this past weekend. It looks like his parents were able to join him on that trip, as they posted a picture with Dan Lanning driving around on the golf cart or whatever it was around the Oregon campus. So it kind of seems like McHale's been working from a de facto top 3 of Oregon, USC, and Texas A&M. And I just don't think that USC or Texas A&M are really going to be able to put together a stronger pitch than Oregon can, given the direction of the program. I think that USC and Texas A&M are both programs that are trying to turn things around, and they both certainly have the resources to do that. But I'm looking at Oregon right now, Justin, and they're a well-oiled machine. You have guys like Kamar Matudi, Aiden Breland, Dylan Williams, Nasir Wyatt here, even in the 2025 class. I think if I'm Noah McHale, I look at that elite group of guys and say, I want to be a part of that. I want to try to build this elite defense with Dan Lanning and go after that first national championship. So I just think that Oregon is really where this guy's heart's at, and I think he's going to be a Duck when all is said and done at the end of next month.
No, I like the pick from you there. It's one I've thought about maybe for the last week or so, but just I wasn't ready to pull a trigger yet. I think you were right to do that. I wouldn't be surprised to see, some more picks rolling in the next week or two, I assume. He set a commitment date for the end of June. He takes an official visit to Oregon. I think I think when you start to look at Oregon and what Dan Lanning's done, it's very comparable to Alabama when Alabama was rolling along, right? Alabama was able to pick up really great classes and assemble just kind of stack class after class because, those guys would look at what's on the roster and be like, well, I want to go play with other good players. Looks like coach is building a national championship roster. And I don't think Oregon's there yet. I'm not trying to say that Oregon's Alabama, of the height of the Nick Saban era, but I think you could very much see the progression towards that. Oregon is building a really incredible roster, and I think what that means for a guy like Noah McHale. The head coach is a defensive guy. He's built a really good defensive staff. There's a lot of good players on the defense. USC certainly doesn't offer that at this point. I think Texas A&M will. I think Mike Elko will definitely. He's a defensive guy too, and he'll mirror that. But this is year one for him, so he's got some work to do down there with that Texas A&M roster. Where you look at Oregon and say, well, that one's definitely a lot closer to maybe being a national championship contender or a perennial national championship contender. So I like the pick from you. I think in the end, I think Texas A&M will be the biggest threat just because of what they offer and what they could probably put on the table NIL wise. But I think Oregon can get very competitive there. And once again, you're a heck of a lot closer to home than College Station is. So a lot to like there. And I love the fact that Noah McHale was on campus by himself last weekend and got Dan Lanning and the staff's full attention.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's big. I think that people don't necessarily give that enough credit when you're looking at maybe it's a quiet weekend here and there, but who is on campus and who's able to get a majority of the staff's attention. So I really like Oregon for Noah McHale here. The Ducks have certainly set up shop in Southern California, and I think that's really one of their pipelines, right? You look at maybe a guy like Noah McHale or getting some guys from Mater Dei, Mateo Uiagalelei out of St. John Bosco. I know that they just extended another offer to Dutch Horsk, a 2026 edge at St. John Bosco. So they don't plan on going anywhere as far as Southern California is concerned, but they're also, like we said, with Keon Russell trying to expand that pipeline out into the state of Texas, and things could get pretty scary if you let Oregon get going out in the state of Texas. I was going to maybe make it a longer section, but I did also put a pick in for Brandon Lockhart to flip from USC 2026 cornerback out of Loyola in the Los Angeles area. Justin, I know you made this pick. I think it was last week. So there's not a whole lot to add here. I think I'm just really confident in what Oregon's doing in Southern California. The Rashad Wadood factor, I think, is a huge component of Lockhart's recruitment. He also mentioned in my interview with him that he didn't get off to the best start with the new USC defensive staff. So it seems, again, like that's kind of a soft commitment right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he opened things back up, maybe not in the near future, but at some point. And whenever that happens, if it does happen, I would think that Oregon's going to be in the driver's seat there.
Yeah, again, another, top defensive player out west that the staff has prioritized early. And just look at the track record. I mean, they're doing really well with these, guys out west that they prioritize, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I'm struggling, honestly, and it's going to be me throwing a little bit of shade, but I'm struggling to think of the last time USC beat out Oregon for a defensive guy they really wanted. I mean, maybe it doesn't even happen. I mean, they had Dalen, they didn't even have Dalen Austin. They had Dakota Fields for a while, and Oregon was able to flip him back. So certainly looks like that could be something brewing with Brandon Lockhart as well.
Yeah, they did have, even when Dakota Fields, I feel like it's kind of a similar thing. When Dakota Fields committed to USC, I never got the feeling that was going to stick because I knew how much he liked Oregon and that Oregon was going to stay involved there. And then same kind of a deal, I think, with Lockhart. He was telling me even after that visit out for the spring practice that every time he goes to Oregon, he seems to just like it more and more. And I think that he's one of those younger guys that Oregon was able to get in on early, and they're going to stay in the mix there. So keep an eye on those two picks, Noah McHale and Brandon Lockhart, talking with Justin Hopkins here on the ScoopDuck Daily here on the ScoopDuck on 3 YouTube channel. Appreciate all of your guys' support. It has been phenomenal. Justin, let's turn our attention now, kind of our last segment of the show today. Looks like this weekend's brewing to be a pretty special weekend as far as big-time talent coming out to Eugene. I know one of the guys that we are tracking that looks like he's going to be on campus is 2025 ball Safety linebacker Jonah Williams. I feel like I see him talked about as both kind of a hybrid kind of guy, depending on what service you're looking at. But it looks like he is one of those guys that is going to be on campus this weekend. And man, the names don't get much bigger, I feel like, as far as defensive guys.
No, this guy is, this guy's elite, like absolutely. Not just because he's a 5-star. You can see, he's kind of the total package, good instincts, guy can run, can fly, not afraid to hit guys. I mean, he's kind of that total package on defense. And you could see why Oregon's prioritized him early in this cycle. This is not his first visit to Oregon, so this is a chance for the staff to continue building those relationships. Also a guy that's down in Texas. So as we know, the Ducks continuing to try to, recruit that state and pick up some of the talent. This one, as far as I know, Jonah Williams hasn't set any sort of a commitment date, and I'm not sure that one's imminently close. So, I think this is one that you're going to keep working on. I think the key here is you get him on campus for an unofficial visit, make sure he comes back for his official visit in June and kind of see where you're at there. This one will be tough. This is not one that you or I are remotely close to putting in a pick for anybody, certainly not for Oregon. So again, getting him on campus and just kind of like I like to say, keep chopping wood on some of these guys. And I think that's what you're doing here with Jonah Williams.
I'll be honest. Yeah, I don't have a great feel on this recruitment. I think as insiders, it's important to be transparent at times and just tell people that that's how it is sometimes. But that doesn't mean I can't get a call later today or tomorrow or whenever it is and get some quality intel on him. But this has been a guy that Oregon's always stayed in the mix for, even though I haven't felt like they have an awesome shot necessarily or are a leader. I think he's just another one of those guys that is incredibly versatile and that you want to try to get in your defense if you're able to. I know that I think Oklahoma and Texas A&M are two very strong schools that you have to watch in this recruitment. It looks like Steve Wiltfong over with On3 has placed a prediction for Texas A&M. That pick came on May 6th of this year. So maybe the Aggies have a little bit of an edge right now, and you would expect them to be a threat for any in-state guys of Williams caliber. But I don't think you can really underestimate Dan Lanning and what he's got planned at Oregon. So I think that Oregon, like you said, going to be chopping wood, see if you can make up some ground here. I think it's good that he doesn't have a decision timeline right now. Get him on campus and get that official visit locked in and make sure that you stay involved in this recruitment. So that's Jonah Williams. He's one of those big visitors that we are keeping an eye on heading into this weekend. Let's talk about another one, but this time on the defensive line, Justin. Let's talk about Tran Odom out of the state of North Carolina. He has been a very interesting name to keep an eye on because Oregon's defensive line board in 2025 isn't necessarily littered with a bunch of top options on the West Coast, right? You don't have your Keon, your Jericho Johnson, Aiden Breland, Elijah Rushing kind of guys. But the real key here with Tran Odom is that he's originally from Southern California. So in that kind of roundabout way, maybe Oregon tries to make some noise here and tap into those West Coast ties.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of buzz with USC right now with regards to Odom coming off a visit, and so it just seems a pattern that I've noticed. Anytime USC is involved with somebody, it seems as though Dan Lanning takes a notion to maybe turn up the heat. But I mean, Odom's a guy that Oregon went out and visited. Dan Lanning was there personally in the January evaluation period, so it was pretty clear early on that this is a guy that they're prioritizing. And again, it wasn't just like Tosh Lupo or Tony Tuioti. This, Dan Lanning was there, which is a pretty big signal that this is a guy they want. So I do think that he's very impressionable. So I think that, Odom's a guy that, kind of last visit's the best visit, so, that's something to pay attention to with this. And that's what I kind of feel like is with the momentum with USC right now is that's the most recent visit. And so this is a chance for Oregon to kind of capture that back. So we'll see what goes on here because like Jonah Williams, we just talked about, I don't think that Tran Odom's mentioned anything about a commitment timeline at all. I don't think anything's imminent here. So, this is just a really good chance to get him on campus around some really good football players this weekend and lock in your official visit with him in June and see what happens from there. A lot of these guys, I think, are going to take June official visits. And then, either make a commitment in July or late June if they're ready. You'll see a lot of these guys come off the board. And additionally, what I wanted to get to is a guy like Odom and Williams. You're going to get them to visit in late June, preferably, and you're probably going to ask that question if you're Dan Lanning and like, hey, what are you kind of thinking for a decision? Is this something you want to do next month? Or are you still going to take more trips? And then you can kind of recalculate your plan of attack and recruiting there. So I think that's one of those things that you do with Odom as well.
And maybe one of the good things for this weekend, Justin, not only are you getting a really good crop of visitors on campus, you don't have spring ball to worry about anymore. You don't have that on your plate. So I think you're able to get a little bit better one-on-one time with the recruits that are coming on campus and kind of just personalize or tailor that approach to whoever it might be. But with Tran Odom, I like your point about USC kind of seeming like the trendy hot team right now. But again, if Oregon wants them, I feel like they can turn up the heat and really kind of mix up this recruitment with Tran Odom. So I felt pretty good about Oregon's chances with Tran Odom dating back to earlier this spring. I think they had some serious juice in that recruitment, but it seems like it's gone a little bit quiet. So that doesn't mean that it's over. Again, we don't have any finish line right now. So I think Oregon's got as good a chance of as USC or anybody else in that recruitment for that matter. I think there was one more guy that you wanted to talk about, Justin, but I can't quite remember who it was. So if you can tell me who it is, I'll toss it to you and get the highlights up.
Sure. Michael Terry. I figured we'd hit on Michael Terry. He's a 5-star, I believe, right? Yeah, he's either a high 4-star or a 5-star. Nation's #1 athlete, really versatile guy. I know you get the film up in a minute, but again, back out of Texas, Oregon's recruiting one of the very best in the state of Texas. This is one of those guys that can play wide receiver, can play tight end, can just be moved around. That bigger body, 6'5", but very fluid, right? Not just your inline blocking tight end. The guy can really move. So this is one here. I don't recall. Maybe you can, but I don't think Terry. I don't think Terry has been on Oregon's campus. Excuse me, in at least the 2024 calendar year. I do believe he's been last fall. I'd have to go back and look, but it's been a while. So this is a chance to kind of remain in the game. Another guy that I don't think is close to making a decision, but you get this visit, and then you're hoping, obviously, you can get him back in June for an official visit if that's what he's doing. So, again, you can look at the tape. This dude's elite, absolutely elite level athlete. Not going to pretend that Oregon leads here. I don't think that's the case, but I guess we'll just kind of see what happens after this weekend.
I don't think he's been on campus this year either. I was just racking my brain a little bit while you were talking there. So I don't believe he's been on campus, but there's kind of just been talks of him getting out to Oregon. And this is a guy that, all the who's who, all the blue bloods are really after, especially the big names in the state of Texas. That Sarkisian and then Elko are going to want to try to keep him in state if possible for his college ball. But you see him taking handoffs here. You saw him lined up out wide in the slot. I mean, there's nothing this guy can't do, which has made it a little bit hard, I feel like, when I write about him, because I just don't really know how he projects at Oregon. But like you said, maybe a wide receiver tight end type of a deal. I think the jumbo tight ends or the super athletic ones like a Keon Sadiq are really exciting to watch. So I think that Oregon's offense would definitely be able to find a fit for him. And just with the elite skill guys that Oregon's still in on, I think Michael Terry has to be very much at the top of that list or near the top of that list. On3 has him as an On3 industry 5-star. He is listed at 6'3", 210, and you can see he's pretty big on tape. So again, I don't think I've heard too much about Oregon's buzz here in this one, but they're staying involved. And I think getting these guys on campus for unofficials is extra important because Oregon is looking like they're going to be leaning on the official visits majority in the month of June, or especially because they think things go dead in July. So the timing of this is very important, Justin, as maybe we'll get a little bit more clarity of Michael Terry's recruitment coming out of this weekend's visit.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, just watching this kid's film, it's pretty elite. And, we know that Will Stein in Oregon likes to run a lot of 12 personnel, a 2 tight end set. So that means you could have, a guy like Terry that might be a little more athletic, a little less blocking oriented, but if you put him in, opposite, maybe an inline blocker, it really makes your offense very versatile. So he would be a great complement to somebody that's maybe a little bigger, maybe a little, more blocking forward. And then you've got this guy that kind of sneaks out. And that makes this offense really hard to cover. So he'd be a great compliment to somebody just like, I mean, honestly, just like Kenyon Sadiq and Terrence Ferguson work well together. You'll see them out on the field a lot this year together. I think Oregon will continue to do that as well.
The last note I have here to add on Michael Terry is a simple one, but I think one that bears mentioning. He's from San Antonio. Will Stein coached at UTSA. Antonio Parks was also on the staff at UTSA. So those are two connections that I think Oregon's probably going to lean into in this recruitment as they look to make some noise with 5-star Michael Terry out of San Antonio. But Justin, any last notes you kind of wanted to add here before we wrap up today's edition of the ScoopDuck Daily?
No, just loving all the content we've been able to get you guys and Max has been doing and getting some interviews, and make sure you check out some of the stuff today. And it's going to be a big weekend, so make sure you guys stick with us. Things will probably start popping off a little bit, maybe Sunday afternoon or Monday morning with some of these guys getting back home. So should be a fun week recapping some of these visits.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a fun time talking to you, Justin. You guys make sure to lock in with Justin over on Twitter/X at JHopkinsSD. If you want to find more of me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at mtorresports. Subscribe to the ScoopDuck on 3 YouTube channel, and then check us out over on ScoopDuck.com. $1 gets you a whole month of content from myself, Justin, Steve Wolfong, Chad Simmons. It is the place to be for Oregon football recruiting. And share the show, share the Ducks Dish podcast with your friends, with your family, and with other Duck fans. But until next time, thanks, Justin, for coming by. And thank you to everyone for taking some time out of your day to talk some Duck football. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.